In the beginning, there was technology, and it was inherently insecure. And then there was a bridge between insecure technology and secure technology, and it was called CYBERNESIS.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon to you all. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session, proudly sponsored by CYBERNESIS. Please kindly let us know in the chat box or in the question and answer box where in the world you're joining us from. CYBERNESIS is a cybersecurity and IT advisory firm. With CYBERNESIS, we believe in baked-in security and absolutely detest false-add-on security. We offer turnkey cybersecurity products and solutions that include enterprise security management systems implementation, cyber leadership training, and advisory services. Please visit our website at www.cybernesis.tech to learn more. My name is Rufara, and I will be your facilitator today for the next hour. I am the CyberNesis communications consultant, and I have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker to you. Welcome to those who have just joined us. Feel free to drop in the chat box and let us know where you're joining us from today. So our speaker today on the topic of artificial intelligence management systems is Mr. Tej Kogwata, the managing consultant for CyberNesis. Tez is a cybersecurity professional with over 15 years of experience that spans across Africa, Fortune 500 organizations, and government agencies such as the American Defense Information Systems Agency and the United States Navy. Outside of professional certifications such as the coveted CISSP, Tez is also an authorized IEC official training partner instructor and a PCB certified trainer. He conducts professional cybersecurity mentorship through the United States Springbok program. He is also a keynote speaker, having spoken at prestigious events such as the largest tech conference in Africa, the Africa Tech Festival Summit held annually in Cape Town. An avid writer as well, he has authored several articles that have been published in both local and international publications, most notably the Australian Asia Pacific Security Magazine. And most recently, he also became the first PCB ISO IEC 42001 trainer in Zimbabwe. And that's what brings us here today to the webinar about artificial intelligence management systems. Before I hand over to Taz, please do note that we have a few prizes that we have today that are directly linked to this webinar. Only and if only you stick it out to the end. We have a few special prizes, but I can surely guarantee you that anyone who stays to the end will receive something. Please also know that we have a chat function in the chat box or question and answer box for you to ask questions at any time during the presentation. But in the interest of time, we will address these questions at the end of the presentation. Any questions we're not able to address during the session will be addressed outside it. And for those who've also just joined, please also let us know where you're joining us from. Welcome again, everyone. Without further ado, over to you, Taz.
Thank you very much, Rufara. I always get shivers when you introduce me in that fashion and have to pinch myself, wondering who you're talking about. But let's hope that it is indeed me. Thank you to everybody as well for joining. We do really appreciate your time. And as part of appreciate your time, we'll jump straight into the matter of the day. The matter of the day today is artificial intelligence. The webinar has been titled Artificial Intelligence Governance, a Case for ISO IEC 42001. So at the end of the next 30 minutes or so, the question we need to be able to answer, all of us, is the understanding that firstly, artificial intelligence is transforming industries. I hope we can answer that immediately, and we should be all aware of that. But secondly, and most importantly, are we ready for the risks? because as much as artificial intelligence is just about everywhere, the risks are as well. And let's talk about exactly where we're seeing artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has touched almost everything. I was really excited as I was going through the registered attendees for this webinar, and we've got people who are obviously in IT, cybersecurity, banking, finance, but we even had ministers of religion. We've got people that are in the healthcare sector everywhere. There is no stone unturned when it comes to AI. And let's talk about a bit about healthcare. So with healthcare, we've got AI being used for things like medical diagnosis. We're now trusting AI to actually be able to administer drugs to us. Even things like patient data analysis, which makes sense because obviously, if you cumulatively take a lot of different patients and be able to put that information, crunch it to get together as big data, you do have better outcomes. Finance has benefited through things like risk management, fraud detection, credit score ratings, automated trading as well. It's been huge. Very practical industries such as manufacturing, agriculture have benefited from things like your quality control, your product optimization, crop rotation, monitoring, precision farming, you name it. Retail. I think all of us, I'm sure, have had the opportunity of being on a website and actually chatting to a chatbot that tells us things that we didn't know about ourselves, and we end up actually making a purchase that was unwarranted and uncalled for. And that's actually a chatbot. It's a piece of code, it's an algorithm speaking to us. Transportation. Very interestingly, I think a couple of days ago on the computer site of Zimbabwe Forum, I saw a video of students at Harare Institute of Technology, engineers, who are working on an AI solution for traffic robots, or rather traffic lights, let me put it that way. And the idea is to make sure that they have cameras set up that will allow you to be able to not only manage traffic, to make sure that it's optimized at different traffic congestion levels, but also looking at post-accident scenarios and so on and so forth. Very interesting work, and that's being done right now as we speak. Education has benefited through adaptive learning, personalized learning plans, automated grading as you actually write. For those of you who've had the opportunity of attending IEC 2 exams, you know that they're adaptive. As you write the exam, it starts to modify itself depending on your performance. You do bad, it gives you easy questions. You do well, it gives you difficult questions. The other industry that's very interesting is things like creative industries, art generation, music composition, as well as content creation. And we'll speak a little bit more about that as we go through this webinar. But obviously, AI, as I mentioned, is being used in a lot of places. Nowadays, every company that's out there, you'll hear that it comes with AI. Whatever it is, it comes with AI. Allow me to use Shona and say, with AI, it will not be a team. And for those of you that I know don't understand Shona, that means that with AI, you can make tea. And it means you can do almost anything. And as much as it might be a gimmick in a lot of cases, it is true. There's a lot of power within AI. And the unfortunate thing is that as much as there is power, there's also a lot of abuse in AI. And one of the biggest ones that a lot of us have seen already has got to do with deepfakes. So this is obviously the creation of fake videos, audios, images, just a lot of misinformation that's going out to people through deepfakes. There's organizations that have lost a lot of money through audio deepfakes, where a CFO has spoken to a finance manager and authorized the transfer of $250,000. These things have not only happened, but are continually happening through the use of AI. It's election season, and campaigns are the order of the day. Through AI generated content, there's a lot of decampaigning and disinformation that's out there. Cyber attacks. Now, a lot of us have already received emails at some point in our lives from a famous Egyptian or Nigerian prince who has recently happened upon an inheritance of $72.5 million. And for them to be able to get their money out, we need to set up a bank account and send them $3,000 to activate the process. I hope none of us have fallen for that. But obviously, a scam like that to a lot of us is clearly hogwash. But if, for example, right now in Zimbabwe, where it's holiday time for a lot of our children, and next week they'll be going back to school. So a lot of us have, hopefully have already paid our school fees and we're up to date. But if you receive an email from your child's school telling you that, yes, you have paid, you're up to date, but unfortunately you have forgotten that there is actually a trip or a certain club that they're a part of, that you know they're a part of, they do ballet or swimming, whatever it is, and there's an extra $350 that needs to be paid today. If you're as busy as most people are on this forum, you might just pay that money. And that is another whole set of phishing scams that is now possible through things like open source intelligence and putting behind that a lot of AI power to make it a reality. Mass surveillance. We won't talk about which governments or which institutions, but these things are happening where people are actually being profiled through mass surveillance. Harassment. Unfortunately, the same chatbots that would have sold to you in useful and constructive AI can also be used to bully and harass you online. If you go onto the deep web, if you go onto the Onion network, you're able to find some of these tools. They're available. The same way that you can go on to Microsoft and buy software as a service, you can also go onto the deep web and also buy, unfortunately, harassment as a service. It's something that can be done, and it can actually be snowballed through AI. We spoke earlier on about the benefits of being able to digitally create art and compose music through AI. Unfortunately, what that means as well is that it's also become a lot easier to actually reproduce copyrighted material and actually steal art and steal music and take away from people who are actually earning an earnest living. We've spoken about social engineering and how that can be supersized through AI. Another interesting one is bias and discrimination. Now, all of us naturally have biases. I like blue more than green simply because that's who I am. And that's okay, but I need to be aware of the fact that I have that bias and I need to adjust myself to that bias. Now, if that bias can actually be programmed into a large language model or into generative AI of any sort, and have outcomes where things like hiring, lending, and law enforcement are tweaked through those bias and discriminations. Honestly, it's a recipe for disaster. And having said that, I just want to share with everybody a video that a lot of us have seen. And if you haven't seen it, you'll find it very interesting because of the level that AI is now at. So that short clip there is a clip of two presidential candidates for the US election that'll be run this year. And it's absolutely shocking. I mean, they're in absolutely compromising positions, and that is purely AI. And that just shows exactly how bad it can get. Here's another example. So this is what's called an AI influencer model. And this is something that can be drummed up in about 3 minutes or so. So it's 2024, and influencing is a real job. And it takes time to be an influencer. It takes a lot of sacrifice and heartache and putting yourself out there. And the amount of money that can be earned through being an influencer is phenomenal. In this case, without having to go out there and create rapport and create some sort of persona about yourself through AI, this particular AI influencer model is able to make $23,000 a month. That is an inordinate amount of money, and simply through AI. And that's actually taking away jobs, modern day jobs. So AI abuses, AI breaches actually cost money. And the question that we need to probably ask each other now, and I want to ask everybody, please, to participate in this poll, is how much do you think the average AI breach costs? How much do you think the average AI breach costs? So you should see a poll that pops up on screen. Please feel free to tick whichever box you reckon is the correct answer and click submit. So we've got there 100,000, 500,000, $1 million US, $5 million, and over $15 million. How much do you think the average AI breach costs? Okay, we've got a few that are coming through. We've got a few responses. Please keep them coming. We'll just give that a second or two. Any more responses? Okay, I see someone has actually responded in the chat box. I think if you're on a mobile, you might struggle to actually respond to this, but we do have a few. Any more? We've got 3 responses so far. Do we have any more? Okay, I see a few more responses on the chat box. Fantastic, thank you. So I think generally there is thinking of between 5 million and over 15 million. We do have some people who think that it's roughly about $1 million. Let's move forward and find out exactly how much it is. So the average AI breach, and this is global, we're talking about Europe, Africa, America, Asia, Australia, everywhere in the world, is $4.8 million. So whoever said $5 million, you're almost just about on the money. And that's according to IBM's 2024 data breach report. And this excludes, cybersecurity breaches. So alone, I mean, having AI in place, the cost can be absolutely phenomenal. Let me share another statistic that's really interesting because you might think, yeah, it's them and not us, but 77% globally of businesses have actually faced AI security breaches. Now, this is from a small breach, like someone, I know one organization where someone turned on a translation app and it just started joining every meeting and recording things that people weren't sure where their things are going and all that, to like really, hectic things like people losing $500,000 through a deep fake. But 77% of businesses have actually had these issues. And the question becomes, especially for organizations, what do we then do? How can we go about it? And the answer is exactly what we want to answer today, and that's all about governance. So before we talk about what we can do as individuals, what we can do as organizations, let's talk about large institutions and governments and what's happening. So quite recently, on the 1st of August, just about a month ago, the European Union enforced the AI Act, which is absolutely great because the AI Act looks specifically at addressing risks and challenges that are posed by AI, and looking specifically at making sure that AI that is in use is safe, is transparent, as well as accountable. And the other big thing that they did with the EU AI Act is that they made sure that it's not like a colossal, huge requirement that even small and medium-sized enterprises will not be able to live up to. But specifically, they made it easy for a startup, so to speak, to be able to comply with the stringent AI regulations. The other thing that I think is also important to be aware of is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development AI principles. Now, these are quite old. They're like 5 years old, but they're still very, very relevant. And we'll go through them very quickly. The first one is inclusive growth and well-being. So AI must benefit people and enhance their well-being. If it's not doing that, what's the point? The second thing is that it must be human-centered and have human-centered values and fairness. So fairness and values all amount to respect and respecting human rights, human dignity, the values, and avoiding the things we spoke about earlier on, bias and discrimination. Thirdly, all AI systems should be transparent. You must be able to explain them. It must not just be a thumbs up that a result comes out or a series blurs out something you don't understand. It must be explainable and you must be able to interpret it. If it cannot be interpreted, then it violates the OECD AI principles. Any AI application must be robust, secure, and safe. And through that, reliability becomes very important. And the last thing, accountability. Organizations developing and using AI should be accountable for their AI systems. Having looked at accountability, a question again to everybody, and I'm just going to launch another poll here. I noticed some people actually responded in the chat. Go for it. I know it could feel a little bit personal, but if you can, especially using the poll, does your organization have an AI policy? I'm pretty sure that your organization has an information security policy. Pretty sure that they have a cybersecurity policy, but do you have an AI policy? I noticed that we have quite a few students that have joined as well. Does your university or the learning institution where you're at right now, is there an AI policy in place? Are you aware of it? A question to everybody: do you have an AI policy? And we have a yes there. Fantastic. That's a yes from Cape Town, I believe. Okay, we've got a no on the chat box there. Thank you. All right, we've got 4 responses in the poll, and deliberately, these were not actually shared, but those are 100% no. And thank you very much for your honesty, everybody. It is definitely very much appreciated. So coming down from the EU, from the OECD, which has about 38 different member countries, what can we then do? So the first thing we've spoken about already, develop an AI policy. And when you develop your AI policy, make sure that very specific AI principles are a part of that. Specifically, transparency, hugely important. Spoken about explainability as well as bias and discrimination. But you must have accountability through human oversight. You cannot have a situation where you've just got AI running free and free willingly doing what it wants to do. You must have oversight. And lastly, ethical principles. We all sort of know, whether we're religious or not, that this is wrong. It's wrong to kill someone. It's not okay. Those ethical principles must translate to your AI development as well as your AI implementation. The other thing you should consider, especially for the, I think I saw 1 year from for with regards to the AI policy, but the thing that you must consider on your AI policy and go back to it is the use of some sort of framework. It's helpful because remember, frameworks are developed by multiple brilliant minds brought together and coming up with what they believe is probably the best way forward. So firstly, a lot of people are not very aware of Google's secure AI framework, the SAFE. That is actually very, very helpful. Spare yourself some time, Google it, and have a look at it. The other interesting thing is the NISA's framework for AI cybersecurity practices, the FAICP. And NISA is the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. They deal both the cybersecurity and AI. So having implemented enforced the AI Act, NISA then provides all of the guidance and protocols for the implementation. A lot of us are very familiar with NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology. That's an American organization. And we're also very familiar with the RMF, the Risk Management Framework, as well as the CSF, which Cybersecurity Framework, which is now in version 2.0. And I love the fact that they've now included governance on there. But some of us are not aware of the fact that there is actually a specific risk management framework for artificial intelligence. The other one that a lot of people are not so aware of is OWASP. Now, I think almost every web developer or most IT people are aware of the OWASP top 10, things from SQL injection to all sorts of things on the OWASP top 10. But what they may not be aware of, what was released last year, is the OWASP large language model and generative AI top 10. So this now looks at things like prompt injection rather than SQL injection. Very, very interesting read. Give yourself some time to have a look at that. Incredible what they're doing out there. And lastly, I'll talk about what actually brings us here. And that's the ISO IEC 42001 standard version 2023 for artificial intelligence management systems. So what an artificial intelligence management system is a governance framework that provides you with the tools and the guidelines for you to have the ethical and responsible implementation, development, and use of artificial intelligence. Now, I remember talking to someone and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll get our developers on that. And I said, no, it's not just about development, because right now, if you are using a Windows computer, if you look somewhere, I think in the bottom right, I'm not right now using a Windows computer, you should have like a colorful sort of ribbon kind of thing there, which is Microsoft CoPilot. That is AI, and it's already in your face on your users' desktops already. And if you don't have an AI policy, if you don't have a management system in place, surely you do have a challenge ahead of you sooner than later. Let's talk about the benefits. Okay, so an AIMS based on ISO IEC 42001, the first thing I must mention that you must take away with you today is that that is the only certifiable standard for artificial intelligence management systems. So I spoke about Google Safe, I spoke about NISA, but you cannot, I spoke about NIST, you can't certify an organization against that. So a lot of us are familiar, like for example, with ISO 9001 for quality management. You can certify an individual as the lead implementer, lead auditor. You can also certify an organization, but you cannot certify an organization on ISO 31000, which is risk management. But fortunately for 42001, you can do that. And why would you want to do that? Firstly, it provides your organization with standardized AI governance. It gives you clear guidelines on how to develop, how to deploy, how to use AI. Someone can't just, rock up from nowhere and just say, right, I used the chat GPT to write my report. Let's all do that now. Where is the information going? You've got intellectual property for the organization and you're sending it to ChatGPT to OpenAI. I mean, who's governing that? what sort of agreements you have in place. So the AI, an AI-AMS standardizes that. It also improves the quality of your AI by making sure that it meets standards around quality, safety, security, enhances transparency and explainability. We spoke about that, especially for decision-making AI, which becomes crucial. You don't want AI making decisions that affect someone's health and safety. Risk management through an AI-AMS, you do that specifically for AI. Compliance and regulations. And very interestingly, a lot of us are very familiar with the General Data Protection Regulation in the EU. And if you've had a chance to go through it and look at it, one of the major themes in there is PII, personally identifiable information. If you dash over to South Africa with the POPIA Act, again, one of the main themes is personally identifiable information. If you go across the Limpopo to Zimbabwe, you'll find the same thing with the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Act. Again, personally identifiable information. As it is right now, as of the 1st of August 2024, the EU, who pioneered with the GDPR, now have the EU AI Act. In South Africa, in Zimbabwe, we don't have legislation for that. But I could bet you a pound for a penny that give us 2 to 5 years, we'll probably have the same modeled around, again, the EU AI Act. So what does that mean? It means that it is a good idea to pick your head up, have a look at the EU AI Act, and see where we're going. As well, obviously, if you do work and your organization does work in those regions, it is a benefit to you and a competitive advantage for you to align your organization towards the EU AI Act. The other benefits you get is improved AI ethics, enhanced trust in AI, as well as improved data governance. So understanding ownership. Now, this has been an incredible talk, especially always around the cloud, to say, listen, where is the data? Is it in country or out of country? Who's managing it? What if we lose our staff and all that? Same thing with AI. Because remember, generative pre-programmed text it is trained. You need to give it data. You need to give it information. So where is that information going? And who owns it? And that becomes the issue around the data governance, the accountability and the control of anything AI related. And then lastly, we spoke about in one of the first lines that AI is just about everywhere. And I'll say it again, Unobika tea. You can make tea with AI. So if we're going to rely on AI so much, and if it's going to give us so much shareholder value, we need to protect that shareholder value. And the way that we do that is making sure that it is a part of our disaster recovery preparedness, a part of our business continuity. Because if we remove it and we affect the bottom line, then we ought to make sure that we have some sort of business continuity built into our AI, essentially then making it more robust. So having said all of this, where do we start? What can I do? I've been spoken about different policies and all that stuff. And essentially, I hope we can all nicely see the little AI robot in the corner with the fishing rod there. But Rufaro made mention of that earlier on, that we believe so strongly at CYBERNESIS on data security. And the other thing that we believe in strongly is with equipping people right at the end. So rather than coming in and helping, but actually implementing an artificial intelligence management system for your organization, which at the end of the day, once you're certified, could fall over, we make sure that we actually give you the fishing rod and not the fish. And by doing so, we start by upskilling internal teams, by training those teams and helping them to understand what it actually means and getting to them to the point where they're actually lead implementers, lead auditors on, again, the only certifiable standard, ISO 42001. And I'm so happy to mention to everybody who's managed to join the call today that for the rest of this year, we do actually at CYBERNESIS have a few trainings that are lined up. So fortunately, next week in Harare, we will be hosting a physical 1-week ISO 42001 lead implementer course. The class is yet to fill up completely. There is still time for you to join that one if you would like to. If you're not able to join that one, we do have an online course that is running from the 28th of October to the 1st of November. And to wrap up this year, we have another course that will be running in Joburg in November. Having said that, I would like to thank you all for your immaculate attention. I know you're muted, and I can't really tell how attentive you've been, but I would like to believe we've been attentive. So I want to thank you for your attention and hand over back to Rufaro to address any questions that may have cropped up as I've been going through the webinar. Thank you, and back to you, Rufaro.
Thank you very much, Tess. That's a very insightful presentation that I'm sure we've all benefited from. I've just been checking the chat box, and so far I've got one question. I'm just urging everyone who might have a question to just drop it in the chat box. So far the question that I've got, how do I register for the upcoming PCB ISO IEC 42001 lead implementer training? And do you require cash upfront? Well, firstly, you can register through our website, www.cybernesis.tech. And to answer the second question, in terms of companies, we are happy to accept purchase orders. And for individuals, we accept both cash upfront and terms. So if if you're offering terms, kindly send through an email to enroll@cybernesis.tech with your terms, and we can discuss further. I'll keep checking in the chat box if we've got any other questions coming in. Feel free, guys, to send in the questions. Thank you, Taz. He has just put in the email address that you can ask, that you can get hold of us if you want to register for the upcoming training. Okay, there's another question there. Good day, everyone. Thank you firstly for the insightful presentation. I wanted to find out what are some of the career opportunities along the lines of AI ethics, governance, and implementation of responsible AI. Over to you, Taz.
Thank you very much, Rufaro. So, interesting question, and I think, I noticed on the registration sheet that we actually have a compliance manager or two. So obviously, directly working within compliance, especially IT compliance, is a segue towards that. And before you'd obviously become a compliance manager, you do get GRC, like your governance risk compliance analysts. Those are positions that are normally available that deal with anything governance related. And these AI ethics do fall into the same bracket. I hope that answers your question quite well. But thank you for that question, Chido. Very good question.
Thank you, Chido. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm seeing a question from Colin. He says, we're not sure if our AI policy is up to scratch. Do you offer a service to help us make sure it covers all the bases? And for those without any policy, do you provide a basic template or self-assessment to help get started? To you, Taz?
Thanks very much, and thank you, Colin. And I'm so happy that you're thinking in that manner, because I think you did answer yes to the AI policy. And most definitely, yes, that is one of the services that we do offer. We're happy to sit down and review your AI policy, as well as your procedures and your whole system, so to speak, to make sure that it does align with the common practices as well as the regulations within your jurisdiction. Because I do take note that we do have people that are in Africa. I noticed someone from Poland as well, and there was also someone from the UK. So we do have the expertise, fortunately, in-house, as well as within our consultancy to have a look specifically at that. With regards to basic templates, we are able to provide something, but we do not like doing that. And I'll explain why. You see, the thing is that when you do create policies and procedures, it is so important that those policies speak to your strategy, that they speak to your business objectives, of which every single business under the sun, just like every person, is different. They can be very similar, but they will be different. They'll have within their objectives infused ideas and feelings that are very specific to them. So that's why it's so dangerous. And I know all of us have done it. I'm guilty as well. To go onto the internet and just say, AI policy draft and download 5 of them and just, mishmash them together. Making it worse, you can actually even use AI to draft the policy itself and give it a bit of information. But how well is that policy speaking to your business objectives? How well is that policy speaking to your strategy? So a basic sort of template, I mean, they're there, we can help, but it's really not recommended. Otherwise, you may not get the value that you'd be hoping to have. So I would really honestly encourage in a big way, firstly, doing exactly what you mentioned, Colin, having someone just have a look at it. Also, training is important. We spoke about ISO 42001. There is another very interesting standard, ISO 38507. It is not certifiable. There's a course that we're actually developing, a CYBERNESIS for that. And this provides guidance to executive bodies. So it's more normally for your board. And boards need to have training on those things because they need to understand how it affects their strategy. And it's one thing for every person under the sun to say, if you're not on AI, you're being left behind. But people aren't so sure what that means, and they're not so sure how it affects their exposures and how it affects their attack surfaces and so on and so forth. So most definitely, what we'd prefer to do is to sit down with you, have a look at what you've got. If you've got nothing, to try and help you draft something. What we feel is the best method is to actually have a whole management system in place. If you're already using other ISO products or ISO standards, excuse me, such as your ISO 27001, ISO 2301, it becomes so simple to integrate all of those together at one time. But fantastic question. Thank you very much, Colin.
Right, thank you, Colin. Tonde says, quite an insightful presentation. Question, do you have an indication of the percentage of adopted or plan to adopt ISO IEC 42001 for organizations so far? Back to you, Taz.
That's a very interesting question. Thank you very much, Tonde. Funny enough, I was actually looking, and I'm trying to look for the figures right now, but I was actually looking at the adoption rates in terms of AI generally. And it seems like the people who are adopting AI the most right now are actually marketers, being followed by a lot of other science sort of based uses like engineering, architecture, so on and so forth. So in terms of adoption, I believe that it'll be quite high. The percentage adoption is very difficult to actually have now because remember, if you talk about things like ISO 27001. The current version is 2022. The previous version was 2015. ISO 27001 has had more than a decade to mature. ISO 42001, the first and most brand new version, was 2023. It's not even a year old yet. That's why it's not spoken about and why we have to have these webinars for people to actually understand it. But I do think that it is a very interesting point to ponder. And I also feel that data around that would definitely be very helpful. There are a lot of indications I know within the South African market, especially data analytics, that they are very interested in these things simply because they know the power. And especially for developers, when you've had a chance to actually churn out something using a large language model, you realize how much power is at your fingertips. And you also realize that with much power comes much responsibility. So I don't have those offhand, and I think they'll be difficult to get. But what I am aware of is that there's also a lot of adoption in terms of, I think some of us have already seen that there are jobs out there, CAIO, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. And right next to this person will be a CIO, a Chief Information Officer, as well as a CISO, and so on and so forth. So people are understanding how important artificial intelligence is and giving it its own seat at the table. I hope that sort of gives you some sort of indication. So within those functions, 42001 becomes incredibly important.
Okay, thank you, Taz. Thanks again, Tonde. Another question from Viola. How long roughly does the process of setting up the policy take?
Thank you, Viola. And maybe just to clarify as well, it's a policy is one of the outcomes of an artificial intelligence management system, but it is not the be all and end all. It's sort of like a basic requirement that if you want to have a business, you need to be incorporated, sort of thing. So what you really want to think about more is the whole artificial intelligence management system. And this really does depend on the size of your organization. Having said that, any organization, no matter how small, 1 to 2 people, or how big, 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you can certify against the standard. How long it'll take, depending on your commitment, probably between 3 and 6 months for you to set up a whole artificial intelligence management system. That's the healthy way to do it. You can lose weight like in a day or in 2 weeks, whatever it is, but it's unhealthy. But if you lose weight gradually, you make sure that the gains are not eroded by speed. Okay.
Thank you, Taz. I'm still waiting for more questions. We've got 15 more minutes till our lunch hour is finished.
I don't know if people want all of their lunch done, but
All right. I'll just give it one more minute and then we'll end the meeting. All right. If there are no more questions, I'll just like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. I hope we were able to learn a thing or two, and hopefully we'll have some of you join us next week for the upcoming training. Thank you very much, Tess. Wonderful presentation. I hope to do this again. Have a great day, everyone. And for the prizes that we mentioned earlier on, let me hand it over to Tess to provide a bit more detail about that.
Thank you very much, Rupara. So for our prizes, and we did mention that every single person will get one, those will be discount coupons that will be sent through to your email address. So you'll receive those tomorrow, and they will provide you with a discount that is valid for the next 3 months. So within those 3 months, you would need to obviously register for training and be able to have access to the discount. Otherwise, thank you very much for this Lunch and Learn session. Please join us for the next one, which will be coming probably next month. We love to have lunch and we love to learn as well. Otherwise, thank you, Rufaro. Thank you, everyone. Please enjoy the rest of your day.